I am going to say something that may sound strange coming from a 74-year-old woman. I did everything right, and it was not enough. I followed the rules people gave me. I made the careful choices everyone praised. I lived the kind of life that looks good when you describe it to others. And still, I ended up here, sitting in a quiet house, asking myself a question that has no easy answer. Did I ever really live? Or did I just behave well for a very long time? If you are watching this, a spouse may be gone. Friends are fewer. The house feels larger than it used to. And in that quiet, memories start to speak louder than they ever did before. This is not a message filled with regret meant to scare you. It is not meant to make you sad. It is meant to be honest. Honest in a way many of us were never allowed to be when we were young. Because when I was young, honesty about wanting more felt dangerous. And you are over 60 or 70 or even 80. I want you to know you are not alone in these thoughts. When I was in my early 20s, I believed there was a correct way to live. You get married young. Many of us reach a point where the noise of life fades. The children are grown. You build a stable home. You support your husband. You raise children who behave well and succeed. You keep things together. You do not complain. You do not question too much. That path was clear, and everyone I knew was walking it. So I walked it too. I married at 22. People told me I was lucky. They said I had done well. They said I had secured my future. I believed them. I did not ask myself if I was ready. I did not ask myself what I wanted my days to feel like. I was more afraid of being left behind than I was curious about my own heart. Once married, my life slowly became smaller, though I did not see it that way at the time. It felt busy. It felt full. There was always something to do. A house to manage, meals to plan, children to raise, schedules to keep, needs to meet. I told myself this was what purpose felt like, and maybe, for a while, it was. I loved my children deeply. I still do. But somewhere along the way, every dream I once had quietly shifted onto them. I wanted them to succeed where I had stayed safe. I wanted them to be brave where I had been careful. I poured everything into them because it felt noble and because it gave me a reason not to look too closely at what I had given up. I also became very good at supporting my husband. His work mattered. His goals mattered. His stress mattered. I made sure our home ran smoothly so he could focus on building his life. I did not resent him for this. I believed that love meant stepping back so someone else could step forward. Years passed this way. Decades, really. And because nothing went terribly wrong, I told myself everything was fine. That is the tricky part. When life goes smoothly, you rarely stop to ask if it is truly yours. Then one day, everything changed. My husband passed away suddenly. After the shock and the sadness, after the visitors stopped coming and the food stopped arriving, I was left alone in that house for the first time in over 50 years. And that is when I realized something I was not prepared for. I did not know who I was without everyone else needing me. I stood in front of the mirror and felt like I was looking at a stranger. I had spent so many years being a wife, a mother, and a caretaker that I had no clear sense of what I liked, what I wanted, or what brought me joy. I had done everything right, but nothing in my life felt like it truly belonged to me. That is when the regret began. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and steady. It was not regret for bad choices. It was regret for choices I never made at all.
I will stop here for now. If this feels familiar to you, stay with me. There is more I need to say. If you stay with me, then write continue below. When I began to understand this regret, I tried to explain it away. I told myself it was just grief. I told myself it was loneliness, the kind that comes after losing someone you built your whole life around. I told myself this feeling was normal at my age, something everyone experiences when the house gets quiet and the days slow down. But deep inside, I knew that explanation was not enough. What I was feeling came from much further back. It was the realization that I had spent most of my life reacting to what was expected of me instead of choosing what felt true to me. A while ago, I watched a video of a man who was only 40 years old. He sat in front of a camera and said he had wasted his life. He talked about chasing excitement, spending his youth trying to impress people, and not building anything solid. He warned young people that time runs out faster than they think. As I listened, I felt something unexpected. I did not feel judgment. I felt contrast. He was grieving the mistakes he made. I was grieving something else entirely. I was grieving the freedom I never even tried to use. That kind of grief is hard to explain because it does not come from one bad decision. It comes from many small, careful choices made over decades. Choices that seem sensible in the moment. Choices that keep life stable and respectable. But when you look back, you realize those choices slowly moved you further away from yourself. When you make mistakes, you can often learn from them. You can point to a moment and say, that was where things went wrong. But when you live carefully your whole life, there is no clear turning point. The loss is quiet and spread out, like a slow fading rather than a sudden break. I often think about a woman I knew years ago named Patricia. While most of us were settling down, getting married, and starting families, she chose a different path. She went to law school. People talked about her behind her back. They said she was selfish. They said she would regret it. They said she would end up alone. I believed those warnings because they matched what I had been taught to fear. I told myself I was being wise by choosing safety instead. Many years later, I ran into Patricia again. She had lived in many places. She had traveled to countries I had only seen on television. She spoke with confidence and ease. When she talked about her life, her eyes were alive. I do not know if she was perfectly happy. I am sure she had regrets of her own. But one thing was clear. Her life belonged to her. She had chosen it. And that made all the difference. That moment stayed with me. It helped me understand something important. Regret does not always come from doing the wrong thing. Sometimes it comes from never allowing yourself to want something deeply enough to risk disappointment. Sometimes it comes from choosing approval over honesty and safety over curiosity again and again until you forget what your own voice sounds like. I want to be clear about something. I am not saying marriage is a mistake. I am not saying children are a burden. I loved my family deeply, and I still do. But love should not require you to disappear. And for many of us, especially women of my generation, that is exactly what happened. We were taught that being good meant being quiet, that wanting more was selfish, that questioning the path was dangerous. Over time, we learned to silence ourselves so well that we no longer notice the silence. If you are watching this and you are already in your later years, you might be thinking it is too late. I understand that feeling because I live with it too. I cannot go back and change my past. I cannot rewrite the choices I made. My life unfolded the way it did. But I want you to hear this gently and clearly. Even now, it is not too late to reconnect with yourself. You do not need to make dramatic changes. You do not need to become someone new. Sometimes it starts with very small things. paying attention to what brings you comfort, allowing yourself to enjoy something without feeling guilty, being curious again, saying what you feel, even if your voice shakes a little. These may seem like small acts, but they are acts of ownership. And ownership brings warmth back into life. And if you are watching this and you are younger, I hope you listen closely. Do not wait until everything is quiet to ask who you are. Do not assume that doing everything right will automatically bring peace. Question the rules you inherited. Ask yourself often whether the life you are building feels like it belongs to you. One day, you will be old. That day comes faster than you think, and when you look back, the question will not be whether you were perfect. It will be whether you were brave enough to live honestly. I wish someone had told me that being safe is not the same as being alive. I wish someone had told me that approval fades, but regret can linger. I wish someone had told me that it is better to make mistakes that are yours than to live a life built entirely on other people's expectations. If this message touched something in you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. You can write, "These choices matter," and tell us where you are watching from.